Please welcome Editor-in-Chief, MIT Technology Review, Matt Honan.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Technology Review. I guess you already know that. They just said that. We're going to be talking today a little bit about the care economy. The care economy, more than 1 billion people worldwide are dependent on caregivers, and that can be across all types of things. It's a really big issue, and we want to kind of dive into it today. We're going to have a few panel conversations for you. We're going to have some fireside chats, and we're going to have what I hope is going to be a really great one-on-one conversation. But today we're going to start off with a panel, and this is going to be a panel conversation exploring the state of care in the United States. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Cynthia Breazeal, who's the Dean for Digital Learning here at MIT, and Palak Shah, who's the Social Innovations Director with the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Hello, welcome both of you. So as I was alluding to, when we talk about the care economy, it's a sprawling, vast network of interdependent things, and some of those can be formal, they can be informal. Sometimes we are talking about about the elderly. Sometimes we're talking about people who are young, and it often is disproportionately falls on women in particular to maintain this economy. But I'm interested to hear from both of you how you think about the care economy. What do you think? What is it? How do you define it? What are the core issues there? And I don't know, Palak, you can maybe start.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. So, you named a lot of the contradictions and the complexities of the care economy and the mostly women who power the care economy. I'm Palak, and I'm here with an organization that's called the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and we're the national voice for the nation's caregivers, the mostly women who work as nannies and house cleaners and housekeepers and those who are caring for people who are aging and those with disabilities. And the thing that unites this workforce, among many other things, is that they work in the privacy of other people's homes. They work behind closed doors. And they provide the care that all of us need, right? They provide help and support, and they enable us to go to our jobs, right? If domestic workers and caregivers aren't doing their jobs, we aren't able to do our jobs. And of course, care work now expands beyond the work that's happening in homes, and you think about nursing homes and all kinds of places where care is being performed in residential facilities and whatnot. And while our organization works specifically with the workers who work in the homes, behind the doors of homes, we are in a large and broad ecosystem, right, of care workers, and some who are paid, many people who are not paid to provide the care in the economy, right, that we all depend on. But the central challenge I think we face is that care is, and for generations, has been devalued. And our assertion is that a large part of that devaluation is that it is seen as women's work. That care work is women's work. It's non-skilled or unskilled, it's unprofessional, and sometimes we don't even refer to it as work, we refer to it as help, right? And the challenge with that is that care is some of the most important work, as I said, in our economy, and care jobs are job-enabling jobs, as I said. And part of the shift that we're seeking to make, the opportunity that's rooted in the challenges that I'm naming around devaluation, is that we have an opportunity right now, once in a generation kind of shift that's happening, to look at care as infrastructure in our families, in our economies, in our lives, in our societies, in the way that we build our country. And the pandemic, of course, accelerated this opportunity for us because all of us couldn't unsee, especially women who were stuck trying to manage everything in our homes. We couldn't unsee all that was revealed and how much everything was strung together so delicately when it all got disrupted. So, I think that's the workforce our role in this ecosystem is to really advance and elevate and unveil the workers, the women who are working in this industry, empowering this industry, which of course, as I'm sure you know, these are poverty wage jobs. These are jobs that are isolating. These are jobs that have fundamentally been invisible to large parts of the economy and formal economic indicators and all kinds of things because of lots of intersection issues around immigration and labor laws and a whole bunch of things. And if you ask yourself, why is it? Why is it that these jobs and this is so undervalued? Yes, sure, part of it is what I've been saying. It's a cultural devaluation around the labor that women have performed. But that's not it. We've had a history of labor laws in this country that don't protect these workers, and that is rooted in the ugly legacy of slavery in this country. And if you look at the actual laws and why were domestic workers and farm workers excluded from the National Labor Relations Act and the New Deal and all of the foundational labor laws we have in this country, it was because those workers at the time were Black Americans in this country. And in order to pass the compromise of the New Deal in our legislative process, we cut out domestic workers and farm workers. And so our organization, and we can get to this, is really is kind of taken the baton of the domestic worker movement from previous generations. You know, Dorothy Bolden was active in the civil rights movement. She was a domestic worker. The maids in Atlanta went on strike in the 1890s. So there's a long and rich history of domestic workers, not just fighting for their own rights, but seeking to kind of elevate and uplift the rights of others as well.
Cynthia, I'm going to ask you if you could basically quickly answer the same question on how you think about the economy, this economy, and especially the ways that it's hidden sometimes, the ways that we don't see it. How do you think about the care economy?
Yeah, so I guess I'm taking the role of a technologist on this panel. I'm actually a faculty here at the Media Lab, and I work in an area called social robotics. So a lot of this is particularly around artificial intelligence and intelligence agents. Some of my projects have been looking at applications that are very much resonant with the topic of this panel. You know, there's always been this assumption often when we talk about robots or intelligent machines that we're going to replace workers. We're going to replace, the people who are playing these critical roles. And I can tell you, as we've been looking across different domains, especially because, I mentioned I do social robotics, a lot of this is around the social and emotional qualities of the interaction with a particular kind of AI. So we've been looking at areas where, we ask the question, how can intelligent machines contribute to human flourishing, lifelong learning, aging with independence, mental wellness, these kinds of applications. These are not typical applications that we think about robots and AI. But in these areas, the theme that comes up again and again is there is this growing demand, global aging society, incidence of chronic disease. We all know now, emotional, mental wellness, depression, like all of these things globally on the rise. And the number, we literally cannot train enough people to bridge this gap. And these people are actually leaving the profession even once they're trained because it's stressful, the pay isn't good enough. So the question for us is, can we contribute to the infrastructure? I think this is kind of the piece that fits in. An intelligent, humanistic in its experience aspect of the infrastructure where it is maybe we're all familiar now with Alexa's intelligent agent. So is it a kind of patient or person-facing experience in the home that can extend and support the services and connections provided by family caregivers, professional staff, medical doctors, clinicians, right? So we're trying to design it with this notion of it should empower the whole team, including the individual. And looking at just appreciating, like in a lot of these domains, for instance, you cannot have a personal physician be at your home with you every minute. You can't have a personal tutor, a lifelong, kind of instructor with you every moment. But, with these AIs, you potentially can have that kind of personalized attention and support and these growth and connection opportunities if designed in the right way. So it's the scalability, it's the affordability potentially of AI in this application. So that's kind of the domain where I've really been thinking a lot about these systems. And I think, the punchline I feel in at least my discipline, there's a growing appreciation that, you have to have people caring for people. That human connection, that time, that attention, that devotion, it is critical for every person's sense of self-value and worth. You never want to replace that with technology or machines, even if they're the most, cool, effective, kind of technology. So we really need to think about how we design any kind of intelligent technology with the right mix of usability, user-friendliness, but also we're finding, interestingly, with these social robots, almost this pet-like companionship. So they can provide you with information, they can help you track medication, they can do a number of kind of practical skills for you, they can do video calls, they can help connect you to your families and friends and so forth. But they also can provide this kind of sense of, again, persistent, friendly, warm presence that just lends moments of levity, moments of joy, of humor, that we also know is really, really critical, not to, again, compete or replace with human relationships, but just to augment and extend. So, that's kind of the crux of the way we've been thinking about intelligence, agents, automations in this landscape. And it's still very much in the realm of research, right? We're developing these platforms, we're deploying them around the United States, in student dorms for emotional wellness, in people's homes for kind of, again, long-term interaction around mental and emotional support and things like that. And we're discovering some really fascinating things. I mean, we're actually finding that, we can run kind of clinical questionnaires around pre-post tests, and we can actually see positive benefit, right? So there's a reason, I think, to believe that there's a place for this kind of technology in the infrastructure landscape.
And so that people can see a little bit, get a better picture of what you're talking about here, I believe you have
yeah, so we can cue the video. So I'm talking about robots, but I think it might be helpful for you to, first of all, kind of see an example. So imagine this robot, it's a social robot. It's an emotional wellness coach. And a lot of what we're doing is also looking more at the preventative side. So as opposed to waiting till a person is, say, clinically depressed and then trying to intervene, are there positive psychology kind of wellness activities that you could do regularly to kind of keep you in the emotionally resilient kind of state so you don't go into the depressive state and then really need doctors and clinicians to help kind of pull you out of it. So again, the activities are very much based on kind of proven interventions, positive psychology interventions that are known to boost and improve mood, emotional wellness, a sense of skills. There's an educational component of this, educating you why expressing gratitude or savoring or these kind of skills that you have promote emotional or mental wellness. So there's an educational component as well as a guiding you through activities or even, kind of in a companion-like way, participating in these activities with you, almost like a friend that you can do it together. So we can show the video, and you'll see, a very short clip of the kind of conversation the robot has with the person. But importantly, you're going to see a video of the kind of emotional connection and impact this can have as well. So if you can roll the video.
Remember how we explored self-compassion last week? Before, I was always very harsh on myself, thinking that's the right way to make progress. But now I know it actually helps me to better when I'm warm and compassionate towards myself. It's a complete mind shift. What about you? Did you experience any change you'd like to share?
Okay. It's hard for me to love myself, and this has helped me make it easier. There are a lot of things I would change if I could, but now I'm embracing who I am. So I thank you for that, Jibo.
Wow, thanks for sharing that with me.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Palak, I'm going to... I want to shift back over to you, if I can, for a moment. You have a program, a chat program that you've used to reach out to people who aren't necessarily native English language speakers, a Spanish language chat program. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you learned with it and what types of things that you found that these workers may need that you explored through that program?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the arms of our organization is a tech lab, an innovation lab that I founded, where it's bridging between social movements and technologists. It's undeniable that obviously technology is disrupting so much, and so much within the way that even the domestic work labor markets function. And so everything from the kind of Ubers of cleaning and the Lyfts of home care, all of that is emerging as well, in addition to the kinds of human augmentation technology that you're really talking about. And I think from our perspective, we're really open and receptive to it, which is not always, I think, the kind of the reaction you expect from labor organizations. And it's been very interesting because by having this lab, an innovation lab within our movement, which is by workers and for workers, we've been able to kind of build technology and build prototypes that solve problems that workers have, which mainstream commercial tech isn't really doing yet. I'm still waiting to be impressed on something that improves the quality of jobs in our industry. So what we did was, especially during the pandemic, we had built this chatbot on Facebook. It was a failed marketing experiment for one of our other prototypes. And it evolved into this conversation that we were having with 250,000 Spanish-speaking domestic workers on Facebook. We then, during the pandemic, we turned it into this finger kind of on the pulse of what was happening in the informal and the gray economy, and turned it into a research tool.
Survey tool? Or
a survey tool with the vision of saying, hey, there's all this, all these unemployment numbers and Bureau of Labor Statistics, but all of that is going to be masking the true level of crisis that's happening in the cash markets, the informal markets, the people who aren't answering telephone surveys. And so we ended up using this, and it was really astonishing because we started doing week over surveys, and now we're publishing that and coordinating our reports with the release of the jobs numbers and the unemployment numbers, and really building a complementary economic indicator around what's happening with this part of the economy. And it was really heartbreaking. In the early days of the pandemic, we saw like 90 overnight, like as soon as shelter in place started to go into effect, because domestic workers work in other people's homes and there was so much fear and unknown about what was happening, everybody got fired overnight.
And this was invisible, right? This was not caught.
It wasn't. It's not caught anywhere because it's not part of formal payroll records or anything like that. And so we ended up surfacing a lot of that, and we had a whole bunch of other exciting innovations during that time where we built a safety net with philanthropy and government and others to reach unbanked, undocumented workers during the time and distribute cash payments as part of the emergency cash assistance that happened during that time. But all through this idea that technology can actually be a very enabling mechanism for addressing, not the only mechanism, not the sole way to address, but there's so much richness in what we can do and build together that allows us to address these very historical, very long-standing moral dilemmas that have resulted in domestic workers being invisibilized and devalued, and more really as a proxy of care work and the act of caring being devalued in our larger society.
Cynthia, I'm going to ask you a little bit about AI. I know that you have done some work around getting AI in school to assist teachers, to assist educators and students. Yeah. And I'm hoping you could maybe talk to me a little bit about what that has looked like and what you've learned there, what you've found that's been assistive, and how people have been receptive to it.
Yeah, so just I think to reinforce what you were sharing before, there's been a lot of stereotypes. Teachers will not want to adopt this kind of technology because they're going to feel competitive with us, or older adults won't want to use AI because it's intimidating. And we have not found that to be true at all, as long as you embrace them as co-designers. When you talk about with and for, you absolutely have to go in early, welcome them into as part of your design team. There's a lot more frameworks that are being now translated to advanced technologies like AI around like design justice, participatory co-design. This is really essential. I think when once your primary stakeholders, they understand that they are part of the team and this is something that's really intended to help them, they feel ownership of it also, right? And they know that what they're doing now are going to help people like them. So they lean in and they embrace in the co-design and the innovation process with us. as we've designed these technologies, certainly on the kind of the bleeding kind of AI side of it, I can tell you again and again, deep personalization. So not personalization in terms of change the color or whatever, but like learning, adapting to the individual to understand what kind of intervention and support does this specific person need to be the most successful they can be. That is a really critical piece of the puzzle. There's no one size fits all, of people. So how do you, this gets into kind of privacy and security considerations, but how do you learn? Now the agent has to learn from direct experience, interacting with individuals, knowing kind of what certain kind of key measures or goals or outcomes are, but having to really adapt and customize the way it engages with individuals to help them be the most successful that they can be. So personalization, I call it deep personalization.
Can you speak
is really
a little
important.
bit what that looks like in practice? Like what would an example of that?
Yeah, so for instance, we've done a lot of work with early childhood learning, education, particularly around language and learning skills. So, one reason why we're really interested in early childhood, first of all, is because that is like a critical time to support children's learning. Children also learn through interaction and play. So again, when we talk about a social robot, it's kind of like a perfect application for us to advance the technology, but for a huge impact area. So the robot is designed to essentially interact with children as a peer-like playmate. It's not trying to emulate the teacher. It's more emulating a play-like companion, almost like if your dog were really smart and now could play a suite of educational games with you. So the games are on a tablet. The robot is modeling behaviors like growth mindset, curiosity, kind of aspirational things you want hopefully children to also kind of see and practice and model. But all the time, the robot is talking to the child, listening to the language, analyzing that, but also the gameplay to adapt the curriculum on the tablets, as well as trying to model more accurately what is the mastery or competence of the student. So there's a wide range of machine learning techniques that we're using to build these models, but reinforcement learning is one of these more kind of post-deep learning, which is about supervised kind of data sets. Reinforcement learning really is about learning from direct experience. So what it looks like for the child is I'm just playing this really cool set of games with this fun robot companion that, because it's almost like a pet, I'm not embarrassed when I make mistakes. I don't feel it's judging me, which we found is also really powerful and liberating for children. And what we see, on the outset, pre-post, is that the children are actually, learning quite effectively with these technologies as well. So, and then teachers feel empowered because they feel like they've been part of the design of the process. So that's kind of what it's starting to look like on the ground, in practice.
Well, thank you so much. This is really fascinating. I feel like we could talk a lot longer about it. That is all the time we have for right now.
Great.
Thanks to both of you very much for being here today. And that's just, that was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.